Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective. Welcome to Austin. Steve Sarkeesian, his wife, Laurel Sarkeesian. Welcome to Austin. I'm excited to get to work, get to business. First order of business is the introductory press conference, which I just finished watching along with many other Texas Longhorn fans. And before I get into just some of my thoughts on things that were shared by the president, AD, chairman, board of regents, and Coach Sarkisian, make sure you hit that like button. Show us some love. You guys have been doing a great job supporting the channel. Those of you who really rock with us and want to help us get to 10,000 subscribers relatively soon, hit that subscribe button. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, we had a lot of pleasantries with the bosses and the higher ups. Confirms what a lot of us kind of felt after the Urban Meyer stuff. They tightened up the circle, and clearly it was a 3-man search party, and they got their man and they were discreet about it and on the same page. So. For Conte, this is as big a day for him as it is for Steve Sarkisian, in my opinion, considering this is his signature hire. When you're the athletic director at the University of Texas, yes, you are graded on all the hires you make and how the entire athletic department is running. But football is your breadwinner, that's your baby, and that's what you'll be fully graded on, assessed on, whether or not you have a long tenure career here or if things don't end up your way. So Tom Herman was never Chris Del Conte's guy. Tom Herman was here when Mike Perrin was here as the interim AD. So Chris Del Conte, this was a big, big day for him to solidify his guy and kind of making Sark the made man, so to speak. So on to Sark. He's flying here day after winning a national championship with the Alabama Crimson Tide, where they were focused and he called the game of his life, it seemed like, although every Alabama game seemed like he called the game of his life, which makes him an attractive candidate and ultimately a hire for our school. And I personally really enjoyed I've enjoyed his temperament so far in terms of where he's coming from. He's confident, but not cocky. He's cool. Seems like a cool dude. And I think just looking at him and the charisma that people have talked about, especially those out in California and the West Coast when he was at USC and even up in Washington, that always talked about, he's just a really likable guy. Players seem to like, he just gets along with people. I think that mattered in the hiring process, and the interviewing process of how he was going to relate to his bosses and the people within the Texas network. Are you like? That's something that Tom Herman struggled with. That's something we've talked about a ton recently on this channel. Why decisions get made. And that goes for corporate America, by the way. That's not just exclusive to sports. That's not exclusive to politics. That's all over in any industry. If people like you, you're gonna have more opportunities and easier time. You still got to be good, and Sark has to be really, really good here. Now, in terms of the football aspect, I think him really hitting on playing an exciting brand of football. Can we recruit through our brand? Can we recruit through the product we put on the field? Whether you agree or not, if you're a rival fan watching this video, what we saw last night, Alabama versus Ohio State, was a recruiting video for Steve Sarkisian and the University of Texas. I'm not claiming their championship or anything like that, but schematically, in terms of the position he was putting his players in and how guys that need the football were getting the football with relative ease to be able to be special in space, that's what he's bringing to Texas. Look no further than the commitment today of Armani Whitfield from Louisville, who's a 2022 wide receiver, big-time 4-star prospect. He's a top 80 player overall, according to 247 Sports. I think he's like the number 12th receiver in the country. He's 6'2", can run like the wind. He can get vertical and high point the football. That guy had like 100%, I think either 100% or like 90% crystal balls to Ohio State. And last night he's like, I got to get to Texas. I love the way they're getting him. I love the way this guy is getting people the football. It's not deep, So Steve Sarkisian is able to check off some boxes for a top tier guy right out the gate. That's a big thing because we were struggling in recruiting, and we get the news that Andre Coleman's staying on as the wide receiver coach. So now we have two holdovers in Andre Coleman and Stan Drayton, the running back coach. And I think a lot of people were questioning, myself included, were questioning the Andre Coleman staying on. We hear that he has a previous relationship with Sark, and boom, they start to get people because the offense is what's going to recruit people here. Very, very simple. And hopefully that offense and how they look in that exciting brand and it being aesthetically pleasing helps you win games. And now you take over, because that leads to the next thing. He addressed the Texas high school football coaches. And every coach that gets hired here, because we've done this twice, four in the last, so 3 times we've seen these press conferences since Mac Brown left. Saw it with Charlie Strong, saw it with Tom Herman, now we're seeing it today with Sark. They addressed the Texas high school football coaches. And I thought Sark, everything he said was genuine. I'm not, but they all have to do it. It's the game you have to play in this state. But the point is this, and he made it explicitly clear. If we do what we're supposed to do on the field, we're going to keep Texas players home. That's the goal. They got to keep Texas players here because everybody comes here to stock up. We should be able to stock up within our state. Now, that's not going to stop Steve Sarkisian from going and recruiting California. We know this. That's not going to stop him from some of the ties he's probably developed on the East Coast in Florida, now being at Alabama, and his brand and people studying his offense. He talked about that. One of the reporters asked him about keeping up with the game, and I want to touch on that later in terms of adapting and evolving with the game of football. But I think it is something to be said for how your brand and how you play football can recruit people here. Because for all the numbers that Texas put up last year, and a lot of them were hollow numbers, unfortunately, because they didn't get it done in the big games when they needed it, it wasn't aesthetically pleasing to get people here to say, you know what, I want to come here and get the football. Every Twitter person and everybody's complaining about Bijan's not getting enough touches. What happened to Joshua Moore? Is Jake Smith playing today? That doesn't happen in his scheme, hopefully it being here. So, he reasserted the all gas, no brakes mantra, which has been fun for all of us who are Texas fans. It's just new energy. It's new energy. But I think there's a collective excitement from the players and this doesn't even have anything to do with the press conference, but just the players on the football team who seem to be ready to work, who seem to be very engaged because they see the scheme too. The scheme's also recruiting them. And so he's bringing his scheme, he's bringing his charisma, he seems personable, and he gets it. He came from the NFL, he came from Alabama. So if anybody understands development, should be Steve Sarkisian. I like the fact in his opening statement before the Q&A, I really like the fact that he addressed the close losses last year. And he didn't take the route that Tom Herman did back in 2017. And granted, Tom Herman was taking over a 5-7 team, very different scenario versus Steve Sarkisian taking over a top 20 7-3 Texas team that lost 3 games, very, very close games. I like the fact that he addressed the fact that, hey, this is a good, talented football team. They do have championship talent, and they were close last year. And I'm here to basically be the championship level coach and get them over the hump. I use this analogy all the time for those of you who've been on this channel for a while. It's like Doug Collins to Phil Jackson. And I'm not saying that Steve Sarkisian is Phil Jackson by any means. But at the time, the Chicago Bulls did not know Phil Jackson was Phil Jackson. He had no championships. He'd actually never been a head coach. But they made the move schematically because they knew Jordan, Pippen, all those guys were ready to win. They had the pieces there, but they needed the right personality, the right, whether it was scheme, whether it was mental. I think it was both to get past the Detroit Pistons and win the championship. Doug Collins was getting them on the cusp, but he wasn't getting them to the championship. And Tom Herman, we're finishing third. We make one appearance. We're getting to we're hitting the bare minimum, but it's for what we think we have here and how we've recruited. And some of that a lot of that credit does go to Tom Herman. It hasn't been good enough. They want to make the move. So I like the fact that he addressed that. Didn't come in here and say, this team is trash or anything like that, or poo-poo on the previous coaching staff. I like the fact that he's keeping some coaches, and he said, hey, you have to really, really be thorough in vetting this. I made this comment on the initial video about them last time just doing 15-minute interviews and just firing everybody. I think he's really, really trying to dive in and do the fact that they haven't hired a defensive coordinator. I know some people are concerned about that, and there's a lot of teams out there that are looking for defensive coordinators, LSU included, and we'll probably touch on that a little bit more in our roundtable tonight. But they're taking their time. They're trying to do their due diligence. He's going to ride that wave in recruiting of what people saw last night, as he should. And I think that'll be all those things that the whole staff will be wrapped up this week. And that's what I said on yesterday's video. Vince Young and Colt McCoy were there. Really, really cool. Really, really cool. Especially for Vince Young, considering that Steve Sarkisian was on the sideline at the Rose Bowl in 2005, on the opposing sideline coaching Matt Leinart when we beat them. So him describing that atmosphere and being on the other side and seeing the burnt orange and the prestige and the tradition. And I think that's cool to hear that from an outside perspective, because in a lot of ways he is, until he gets really immersed in the culture and Texas football and coaching in the state of Texas, he is a little bit of an outsider right now, but I think it's a fresh perspective that I don't mind at all. Now, going over to the Q&A. I'm looking at the comp, and he kind of got into talking about the coaching trees. He comes from Pete Carroll, Nick Saban. And I can't make this clear enough. I want Steve Sarkisian to be the best Steve Sarkisian he can be. I don't want him to be the best version of Nick Saban or the best version of Pete Carroll. And I think he did a very good job of illustrating the things he's taken from both. He does seem to be more personality-wise, laid back like a Pete Carroll, laid back in terms of handling press conferences, but having that charisma and that natural, cool confidence. So, and the humility that's there as well. And I like that. And I think that fits and suits Sark. And from how that fits with players, I think he'll be able to build those relationships with players relatively quickly, and also with media and donors and all the nonsense that goes on. Now, I want Sark to come here and be a football coach first. We get caught up in the politics here at Texas. We get caught up in so much nonsense that we want these. We brought Sark here because we think he has a fire scheme. We think he can recruit his ass off and win football games. That's what I need him focused on. Everything else is secondary. But he handled all the Q&A stuff well. I know a lot of people are talking about, if you went to Twitter right after the press conference, the Eyes of Texas stuff and the tough questions that get asked there, which he was ready for. His answer was in alignment with Jay Hartzell's answers and statement that Jay Hartzell made back on July 23rd. And again, when the ban was out of the question and on October 21st, if you pay attention to how he answered the question and enthusiastic he was about, we're going to sing the song, we're proud of the song, it's our school song, but we understand that there's tough conversations that we have to have with people around this, and we'll be sensitive to those things. That mirrors a lot of what the school president says. So that tells me in his interview, it was discussed, alignment amongst the higher ups, the people that were spending money on it. And that's why his answer sounded like that. Now, he is coming from the outside. He's going to have to learn Texas football culture. He's going to have to learn what's happening here. It's very nuanced. Many people, I'm sure, love to hear that enthusiastic answer about the song. Other people, as we're seeing, heads butt already on Twitter about this, and it is split, that are saying, hey, it's insensitive. We got to get rid of the song, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, I'm focused on winning. If we want to get tied up in the song, just be sensitive and mindful of people that have different views. And that just goes for in this climate that we're currently in right now. You're not an a-hole if you like the song. You're not an a-hole if you don't like the song or don't want to sing the song. You're not, to me, you're not any less burnt orange. This is a new day under Sark that we got to move forward together. And hopefully he responds well with his players and they decide on what they want to do as a team and move forward, and everyone can be comfortable in whatever they decide to do. Last I checked, we live in the United States of America. You should be allowed to do what you want to do from a freedom standpoint. I like to celebrate freedom. I don't know about you, but those of you who are very, very high on the song, you got the answer you wanted from your head football coach. Those of you who want to work things out in the background, that's going to happen as well. So all of that he handled well. I think he handled just his temperament is really good, and just how how he'll deal with the media. He's from he had the LA relationship. He even took a jab at Texas A&M, former BYU quarterback. They beat him in 1996. And I think the other thing too is just getting rid of the factions. The issue with the factions that we've had, where it's Tom Herman people and Charlie Strong people, and and he's taking over a team full of Tom Herman people. They need to be Texas football people. They can't be Sark. They can't they need to be Texas football people. And I think that focus that he's learned especially from Nick Saban, on attention to detail, task at hand, not getting caught up in all the BS, especially here in Austin, that can, we as fans can sometimes contribute to that. Let's move forward, clean slate. Who wants to play ball? I think that's why players are already attracted to him. Look at the vibe on social media. It tells you everything you need to know. Players on the team, former players that are even coming back into the fold, and high school players that are like, yo, that scheme's fire. I want to play in that. I want to get the football there. We'll see what he does with the defensive coordinator. That is coming soon. They'll finish up recruiting, but I'm excited. I'm excited for what we're seeing. I think my excitement has grown. I think, he looks buttoned up. Like I said before, it's Christel Conte's decision. It's his hire, it's his baby. And hopefully this is the stability that Texas can finally have to go forward and try to do what they can do to win this conference and hopefully compete at the big boy table for a playoff spot. That's what I want. And I think with the right staff hires and as things are confirmed, Sark can give us a chance to get there. Guys, chime in with your thoughts below, how you felt about today's presser, how you feel about Sark in general, and as things continue to progress forward in the Texas fan base. I appreciate it. Sark, welcome to Austin. And like we do here, we put those horns up. Guys, remember, horns always up. Thank you.